Good morning, everyone, and a warm welcome to Parliament, to this special parliamentary conference on artificial intelligence, which brings together colleagues and guests from across the UK.
Thank you. So I would like to focus on three issues, I say pillars, in my view, decides whether democratic governance succeeds or fails. But before the three pillars, one enabling condition. So, because none of this works without citizens as allies. If people do not understand what is changing, they will treat piracy, safeguard, and AI ethics as bureaucracy or as an annoyance. They will not demand protection, they will not use protection, they will not recognize manipulation when it happens. Trying to secure democracy without public does not work. Well, a technical clarification matters here, and I include myself in this. I also, in my books, and sometimes refer to this system as algorithms, but it's wrong. I'm not making a linguistic sophism, but when we communicate to the public, terminology becomes crucial. Many algorithms are deterministic. So you can define the rules in advance, and the same input produces the same output. Large language models are different. They are neural networks that work on probabilistic basis. They generate outputs by estimating what is most likely next, based on patterns learned from data. Calling them simply algorithms, and I'm one of the guilty guys that use it often, so I'm not complaining, but hides how unpredictable and hard to fully define their behavior currently is. And this misunderstanding feeds unrealistic expectations of control and reliability. Anyway, so the pillars. First pillar, paid influence. Generative AI is changing what people see and also what people write, how they argue, and how they organize reasoning. It writes on behalf of them. For the user, it feels like dialogue. Of course, dialogue produces trust. Trust lowers skepticism. Citizens ask for guidance, not just for facts. They share personal situations, doubts, intentions, and that makes influence continuous, personalized, and normalized. And now connect this to business models. A Reuters investigation recently, based on internal documentation, reported that Meta projected roughly 10% of this year's revenue, about $16 billion, would come from ads tied to scam and prohibited goods. The crucial point is what this reveals about tolerance inside incentive structures. If a company is willing to accept that level of revenue from content that is clearly harmful or deceptive, we should be concerned about what it may accept when influence moves inside language itself, inside framing, inside persuasion. And this is already being discussed in part of the AI industry. Sponsored content embedded directly inside AI responses and generated text, not banners, not separate ads. Content blended into answers, hard to distinguish from neutral information. At that point, influence becomes advice. Paid persuasions enters in the reasoning process of citizens that creates a direct conflict between economic incentives and democratic integrity. This is a red line. Allowing paid influence inside AI outputs would create the most scalable persuasion infrastructure ever built, operating with weak transparency and without meaningful consent. Then, second pillar. Cybersecurity and model poisoning. Because influence on democracy does not only come from persuasion and advertising. It also comes from cyber attacks that change the behavior of the model itself. Model poisoning is a cyber attack in every meaningful sense. An external actor manipulates the data and the system learns from or the system that updated, so the model starts producing distorted outputs. And the system remains online. The content looks normal, but the reasoning is quietly shifted. The citizen does not see it, and often the institution relying on the system that doesn't see either. In my work with the Italian National Cybersecurity Agency, I've seen this phenomenon becoming increasingly common. That is why this is not only a regulatory issue, it's also a cybersecurity issue. Because if AI systems influence public opinion, access to right, or institutional decision, they must be treated as critical infrastructure. And critical infrastructure require a security posture that matches the impact. Secure data pipelines, provenance and integrity controls, continuous monitoring, red teaming, incident response, and clear accountability when models are compromised. Without this, democratic integrity becomes vulnerable to silent, scalable manipulation. And then the third pillar, ethics. Much has been said today about aligning AI with human values. Alignment is now familiar. Models should behave ethically. Systems should respect human dignity. We agree on that. But a political question is often skipped. Aligned to which values? And decided by whom? Over the last decade, projects like, probably some of you remember, the MIT Moral Machine, have shown something clear. People do not share the same moral priorities. Values differ across cultures, regions, social contexts. Even within the same country, ethical choices diverge sharply. A single neural moral baseline is not available in practice. So when we say aligned to human values, the real governance issue is which values are embedded and who chooses them. If this remains implicit, ethics becomes an invisible layer of power applied at a scale without democratic debate. This is why personalized ethics becomes necessary. I'm one of the few talking, for maybe the only one, about personalized ethics. Because personalized ethics means that an AI system explicitly declares which values it applies and under which authority, and allows those values to be adapted to legitimate democratic contexts within clear boundaries and safeguards. And this is not moral relativism. It's democratic governance of value choices with transparency, traceability, and accountability. So human responsibility, of course, must remain human. And this is the core of cyberhumanism, the philosophy I wrote about. And when AI produces an output that can affect decisions, right, money, or safety, a human must verify it. Now we have autonomous agents, and that could be really, really dangerous, because we need verification, not delegation. Responsibility cannot be outsourced to an interface. I say this also from a direct policy experience. I contributed to the drafting of the Italian AI law as part of the 13 members committee, and I worked on the code of practice as well. But from this perspective, these principles are under pressure. There is a real risk of stepping backwards as large actors push for a weaker obligation, less transparency, and looser accountability. Often justified as competitiveness. But personalized ethics also need evidence. As a starting point for study, I created a platform that helps to do that. And, well, it's not a substitute for regulation. It's a practical tool to support democratic oversight. If institutions, researchers, or parliaments want to collaborate, the doors are open. And final point, the most important one. Everything we discuss today tends to stay inside rooms like this, inside institutions, inside expert circles. When news talk about AI only, they talk about AI only in a sensationalism way, the news about AI, but they don't talk about this. So outside, most citizens do not see the context we're living in. Absolutely. I do videos every day talking about this. Teenagers do not realize that they are being influenced by a company. Younger children can't believe the AI is alive. You can't believe they speak with AI speakers. And many adults assume that the system is neutral. So AI is neutral. AI is not neutral. People do not know that language can be influenced at scales. So they don't know that AI outputs can be paid for. They don't know that models can be poisoned. And they don't know that ethical choices are being embedded silently. So if citizens do not understand the environment they live in, they cannot defend themselves. And if they cannot defend themselves, democracy cannot defend itself. That is why awareness and public education are not optional. They are a democratic necessity. We need to bring debate outside these walls, into schools, media, workplace, and everyday life. Otherwise, we'll keep designing protection for people who do not know they need protection. Parliament is used to, not only this one, parliaments, to regulate power, but without informed citizens, regulation remains fragile. Awareness is the missing layer. Without it, none of the pillars will hold. Thank you.
Well, Marco, thank you very much. You really pointed out at some elements that will have us thinking thoroughly about them.
Yeah.
So can you expand briefly
Yes.
about this very interesting point you made?
So ethics and values, of course, are personal. And the thing is that we should first define our personal values, because somebody we don't know. Now, when you are in front of a trolley problem of MIT Moral Machine, sometimes you discover things about yourself. There is a robot at home that is an intelligent anthropomorphic robot, because now we are talking about something digitally generated. But in a few years, we will be here again, I hope to be one of you, talking about artificial anthropomorphic robots that act like us and think like the intelligent AI that we already know. And in that case, if we have a robot at home that is the same that will, I don't know, make works in a factory, and then it helps to run the dog and clean the table, and that's home duties, and it is alone, and there is a problem with the house. Would you save the house or the dog? And at the moment, this is of course, is extreme, no? But the point is, it's clear that you don't know what AI and physical AI in the next future is deciding for you on your behalf. And that's very important. You cannot rely, your decisions. In fact, my series that I do every day is artificial decisions on socials. That's the point. So that's it. And so I created this ethics profile, is the name of the platform, but it's not a commercial thing. It's already there just to be tested. And first you create the profile, then you connect it to the AIs. Some AIs are helpful and willing to have the user's profile, somebody else is not. But we will find a way, the pressure from politics and people would help. That's it.
Thank you. Well, I'm Luz Martinez from Spain, and my question is aimed at Marco Camisani, and it's partly related to the previous panel, because obviously when we talk about artificial intelligence, the framework of values, principles, as you mentioned, is highly important, and taking into account that this is developing so fast that whenever we think that we are reaching an agreement on certain topics, there is something new raised. So probably the question is, what is going to be the limit, that framework that we all can share in terms of accepting the principles of an ethical framework in artificial intelligence, especially when when this is covering really delicate age groups like minors, children, teenagers. And I want to link this with the previous panel when it was this issue raised regarding what is the limit, in terms of protecting children or developing artificial intelligence, when we know that we are getting children in danger or under risk because of all the different dangers that this is being raised. Thank you.
Thank you for this very impressive and brilliant presentations. I'm Sevilay Çelenk from Turkish National Assembly. My question can be considered a little bit philosophical, and I would like to direct these questions to Mr. Calzolari. I believe most of us would accept that the democratic values are extensively fostered and strengthened by by art, by literature, by philosophy, and by journalistic writing and thinking. And if all those areas are largely affected and transformed by AI technologies, and the genuinely original thoughts, texts, and artworks start to be lost in the world of AI, can creativity, critical thought, and democratic way of thinking and discussion can still survive? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deborah, and thank you very much, I think, for very precise and also thought-bringing interventions. And my question goes to Mr. Calzolari, and that's about, actually that has not come to my mind before, but of course, paid content within AI. First, could you give examples of how that's happening, and also how do we regulate that? Because of course, you know, commercials and paid content and other medias are being declared and so on. So that's my first question. And then for Ms. Cabrera, the fake images or deep fake created by AI. In Denmark, we just, is introducing a law on that where we use the copyright principles, that you have the right to your own face and your own special, through your person. Do you see other ways of trying to regulate that specific problem? Thank you.
Well, I am preparing now, currently, a report on violent pornography, and the prevalence of artificial intelligence in this kind of violent films can be overestimated. So we think that artificial intelligence has a great potential as a tool of deep fake porns and this kind of violent films, but also we think that could be a tool to detect this kind of content and limit its spreading. So we say that could be a part of the problem, but also a part of the solution of this kind of problem. So my question is how to materialize this kind of tools in order to fight with these very dangerous and even in what Lou said about the harm in children, because it is a spread over with no boundaries, with no limits for all the consumers, with even zero-click thing. So I think it is, for me, it's very useful, and I am here for doing this kind of questions for my report. Thank you.
Nothing exists like that. There are many tools. Nothing works properly. Recently, an AI tool that could help to define content generated by the AI considered the Declaration of Independence written 99% by the AI. So, and if you can apply some kind of watermark on AI-generated content, pornography, whatever, it could be easily removed, and that's another point. So it's really, it's really hard to use that way. It doesn't work. About the advertising, there is nothing completely official. So OpenAI at the moment is not responding when they ask, when journalists or whatever ask them, what are they doing with us? But there are some cases like, at the beginning of this month, some Peloton and Target advertising appears during the answers, and they say it wasn't paid ads, but just a test. Then, inside the app, the Android beta version of the ChatGPT app, there is a code with written arts feature inside. So we don't know it exactly, but we see that there is a move over there. And the point is that they're looking for new business models. As you know, what they call now AI bubble is based on the fact that OpenAI is struggling because it's very costly, projecting the continued efforts to offer free AI to everybody. And one of the business models that they probably are going to introduce is AI paid advertising. The point is how, because if we about regulation, if we force them to make it very clear when an ad is ad, we'll be right. But if we don't, the risk is that they could give suggestions that are not transparent, that are based on ads. Could you imagine what it could happen to kids or to young people when they ask for help for anything and the result comes from a paid advertising? Do not mention the politically adversary from different and enemies, countries that could use it for disrupting us. I think I answered.
Thank you. Do you want to add something? Yes. Laura.
I wanted to come in on the deepfake new law in Denmark, which I think is a very promising avenue to give people control over the proliferation of deepfakes. I would say what is maybe missing is a core piece of the puzzle, which is what are online platforms doing to curtail the proliferation of deepfakes. Surely this law will motivate them to have more sophisticated detection processes or just processes, period. But it'd be really useful to have some mandated disclosure from companies as to what are they doing to identify proactively deepfakes, what are they doing to ensure takedown rates, and what numbers essentially are at play. The companies, I think, in the US have already done this for different types of illegal content back when the Santa Clara Declaration of Principles were agreed, which were an industry-led standard which had to do with steps taken to reduce illegal content on their platforms. That level of granularity has, I think, not been seen in any other industry-led standard since then. So, for example, the AI Elections Accord that we're seeing in 2024, which was, again, an industry-agreed standard to detect and address AI-generated content on online platforms. 27 tech companies signed it. It was very vague and unspecific. So going back to those levels of granularity would be really useful, and also complement the exercise of individual rights on the side of people affected by deepfakes, which might be a bit slow at first.
If our speakers have no more comments, I will give the floor for the last question. Please.
Thank you. So there are a pair of new papers released on the 4th of December which show that bots can successfully shift political attitudes, even when what the bots are claiming is wrong. So my question really is, how do we tackle the problem that the US executive orders that have been issued in both June this year and more recently this week require large language models built in the US to be suitable for Americans, which means making sure that ideological biases or social agendas aren't built into those models. So I wondered what the panel's answer to that is.
So the limit cannot be technical at all. It must be political and legal. That's it. So if we wait for the technology to be, to tell us where to stop, it doesn't work. We will always be late. With minors, the principle will be only one. Children cannot be a testing ground. That's it. So any AI that can influence a child learning, a child attention, that could touch emotions or behavior should not be deployed without a prior risk assessment, real human oversight, and clear legal accountability. That's the point. So it's not about banning AI in education. It's about using it in a proper way, in a non-negotiable conditions, because they must have transparency on how it's used with our kids. So because protecting children means setting boundaries before harm happens. That's the only way.